Some mistakes destroy your career in seconds. Logan Hayes made his on a crowded Florida beach when he accidentally stared at his terrifying CEO, Claire Bennett, at the exact wrong moment, right after a gust of wind exposed her in front of hundreds of strangers. He knew his life was over, his job gone, his daughter's future destroyed. But instead of ruining him, Claire did something no one expected. She walked toward his 6-year-old daughter's sandcastle and quietly sat down beside them. What happened next changed everything about their broken lives forever. If you want to see how one embarrassing moment became the greatest love story neither of them saw coming, stay with me until the end. And please hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Logan Hayes was 32 years old and absolutely convinced he was failing at everything that mattered. He gripped the steering wheel tighter as the afternoon sun blasted through the windshield of his beat-up Honda, making the cracked dashboard look even more pathetic than usual. The air conditioning had died somewhere near the Georgia state line, and now the thick Florida humidity was turning the car into a slow-cooking oven. Sweat dripped down the back of his neck. His shirt stuck to the seat. Everything smelled like old fast food and broken promises. "Daddy, are we almost there?" It's our past. Emma's voice floated up from the back seat, small and hopeful and completely trusting in a way that made Logan's chest hurt. "Yeah, sweetheart," he said, forcing brightness into his voice. "Maybe 10 more minutes." He glanced in the rearview mirror. Emma was 6 years old, small for her age, with messy blonde hair pulled into a crooked ponytail. He'd attempted that morning before giving up halfway through. She wore a purple swimsuit under her sundress because she'd been too excited to wait until they reached the beach. Her face was pressed against the window, eyes wide as she watched palm trees blur past. This trip was supposed to be special. One perfect weekend before summer ended and real life swallowed them whole again. Emma deserved that much. She deserved so much more than Logan could give her. But this weekend was all he had. The beach parking lot was chaos. Families everywhere, coolers and umbrellas, and screaming kids running in every direction. Logan found a spot near the back, killed the engine, and sat there for a moment, gathering himself. "Can we go now? Can we? Please?" "Yeah, baby. Let's go." They hauled their cheap beach gear across the hot asphalt. Emma's little hand gripped his tightly, her flip-flops slapping against the ground. She was buzzing with excitement, practically vibrating, and Logan felt the weight in his chest ease slightly. Maybe this would be okay. Maybe he could give her this one good memory. The beach was packed. Wall-to-wall people, towels and tents crammed together like some kind of sandy refugee camp. The ocean stretched out impossibly blue and enormous under the bright sky. Waves crashed and rolled. Seagulls screamed overhead. The whole world smelled like salt and sunscreen. Logan found a spot near the water that wasn't already claimed and spread out their faded beach towel. Emma immediately started digging in the sand with a plastic shovel that was missing half its handle. "I'm going to build the biggest castle ever," she announced. "I bet you will." Logan sat down heavily, feeling every hour of the 7-hour drive in his lower back. He was exhausted. Not just tired from the trip, but exhausted in the deep, bone-crushing way that came from months of barely surviving. Working 60-hour weeks at Bennett Consulting Group, coming home to cook dinner and help with homework and do laundry and handle bedtime routines entirely alone. His ex-wife, Melissa, had walked out 2 years ago and never looked back. Just decided one morning that motherhood wasn't for her after all, that she'd made a mistake, that she needed to find herself somewhere far away from the life they'd built together. She sent a check once a month, never called, never asked about Emma. Logan tried not to think about it, tried to focus on the good parts. But lately, the good parts felt harder and harder to find. He watched Emma work on her sandcastle. She was humming something to herself, completely absorbed, her little hands shaping walls and towers with intense concentration. The sight made something twist painfully in Logan's chest. She was so small, so trusting, so completely dependent on him not to screw everything up. "Daddy, look!" She held up a shell, grinning. "That's beautiful, Em. I'm going to put it on top like a flag. Perfect idea." Logan leaned back on his hands, trying to relax. The sun felt good on his skin despite the heat. The ocean sounds were soothing. Maybe he could actually decompress for a few hours. Maybe he could stop thinking about work and bills and the fact that his car needed new tires he couldn't afford. Then he saw her. Claire Bennett, his boss. His terrifying, untouchable, ruthlessly brilliant boss. She was maybe 30 feet down the beach, standing near the waterline in a dark blue swimsuit with some kind of sheer wrap tied around her waist. Her black hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Even here, even on a crowded public beach, she looked impossibly put together, polished, perfect. Logan's stomach dropped through the sand. What were the odds? Florida had hundreds of miles of coastline, thousands of beaches, and somehow he'd ended up at the same one as Claire Bennett on the same weekend. He immediately looked away, praying she hadn't seen him. Maybe he could just keep his head down, stay invisible, get through the weekend without any awkward encounters. The last thing he needed was his CEO watching him struggle through single parenthood on his pathetic weekend getaway. Claire Bennett was 30 years old and already a legend at the company. She'd inherited the firm from her father 3 years ago and had turned it into something even more successful and cutthroat than before. She was brilliant, driven, and absolutely terrifying in meetings. People called her the Ice Queen behind her back. Logan had seen grown men nearly cry after performance reviews with her. She didn't do small talk, didn't do office friendships, didn't seem to do anything except work 18-hour days and expect everyone else to do the same. Logan had exactly 3 interactions with her in the past year. The first was when she walked past his desk without acknowledging his existence. The second was when she sent a company-wide email about efficiency standards that made half the office panic. The third was 2 weeks ago when she'd stopped him in the hallway and asked a clipped question about a client report. He'd stammered through an answer while she stared at him with those sharp, unreadable dark eyes, and then she'd walked away without another word. Now here she was, at his beach, on his one weekend off. Logan focused on Emma's sandcastle and prayed for invisibility. For about 10 minutes, everything was fine. Emma chatted happily about her castle design. Logan nodded and made encouraging sounds while internally calculating how soon they could reasonably leave without disappointing her. Then the wind picked up. It came suddenly, one of those strong ocean gusts that appear out of nowhere. All up and down the beach, umbrellas tilted and towels flipped. Someone's hat went cartwheeling across the sand, and Claire Bennett's wrap tore loose. It happened fast. 1 second she was standing there looking out at the water, and the next second the sheer fabric ripped free and went flying down the beach like some kind of escaped ghost. It left her standing there in just her swimsuit, which was perfectly appropriate beachwear except for the way the wind had positioned everything and the way the sunlight hit her, and the fact that Logan's stupid brain registered all of this in the half second before he could look away. He snapped his eyes back to Emma's castle immediately. "Don't look! Don't look! Don't look!" But it was too late, because when Logan's traitorous brain made him glance back up for just a fraction of a second to see if she'd retrieved the wrap, Claire was looking directly at him. Their eyes met across 30 feet of crowded beach. Her expression was unreadable, cold, flat. Logan's entire body went numb with horror. She'd caught him looking. She thought he'd been staring. She thought he was some kind of creep checking out his boss at the beach. His career was over. Everything was over. He'd be fired by Monday. Escorted out of the building by security. His life was imploding in real time, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Claire bent down, picked up her wrap from where it had landed near someone's cooler, and tied it back around her waist with sharp, precise movements. Then she started walking, toward him. Logan's heart stopped. No. No, 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 no. She was coming over here. She was going to humiliate him in public. She was going to destroy him in front of his daughter. Everything he'd worked for was about to disintegrate because of one stupid accidental glance. Emma didn't notice. She was too focused on her castle, carefully placing the shell on top of the highest tower. "Daddy, do you think dragons would live in this castle?" Maybe, baby." His voice sounded strange and distant. Everything felt unreal. Claire was getting closer. Her face was still completely blank, impossible to read. Logan wanted to grab Emma and run, wanted to disappear into the ocean, wanted literally anything except this moment. Claire stopped about 5 feet away. Logan couldn't breathe. "That's a nice castle," Claire said. Her voice was quieter than he expected. Not the sharp, commanding tone she used in meetings. Something softer. Emma looked up, surprised to find a stranger talking to her. She studied Claire for a moment with that unfiltered curiosity kids have. "Thank you," Emma said politely. "I'm putting a shell flag on top because every castle needs a flag." "That makes sense." Claire stood there awkwardly for a moment, and Logan realized with a shock that she looked uncertain. Claire Bennett, the Ice Queen herself, looked like she wasn't sure what to do next. Would it be okay if I sat down for a minute? She directed the question at Emma, not Logan. Emma glanced at her dad. Logan managed to nod, still unable to form words. His entire brain had short-circuited. Claire carefully sat down on the sand near Emma's castle, keeping a respectful distance. She tucked her legs to the side and wrapped her arms around her knees. The wrap settled around her. She stared at the sand castle like it was the most interesting thing she'd ever seen. I used to build castles when I was little, Claire said quietly. Mine never looked this good. Emma beamed. Really? Really, I wasn't very patient. I'd try to build too fast and everything would collapse. You have to pack the sand tight, Emma explained seriously. And you can't build the towers too tall or they fall down. Daddy taught me. Claire glanced at Logan for the first time since sitting down. Their eyes met again and Logan felt his face burn with embarrassment. I'm sorry, he managed to croak out. About before, I didn't mean to. I wasn't. It's fine. Claire cut him off, her voice flat. The wind happens. Forget about it. But her expression said it wasn't fine. Said she knew exactly what he'd seen and exactly what he thought he'd been caught doing. An awful silence stretched out. Emma, completely oblivious to the adult tension, held out her plastic shovel. Do you want to help? I need someone to dig the moat. Claire looked at the shovel like Emma had just offered her a live grenade. I don't want to intrude on your family time. It's okay, Emma said brightly. Daddy doesn't mind? Right, Daddy? Logan made a strangled sound that Emma apparently took as agreement. Claire hesitated another moment, then carefully took the shovel. Okay, just for a few minutes. She started digging a shallow trench around the castle. Emma directed her with the seriousness of a general commanding troops. Logan sat there in complete shock, watching his 6-year-old boss around his 30-year-old CEO like they were old friends. The moat took shape. Emma clapped her hands excitedly. Now we need to add water so it looks real. I'll get it, Logan said quickly, desperate for an excuse to escape. He grabbed their sand bucket and headed toward the ocean on shaky legs. What was happening? Why was Claire Bennett sitting on the sand with his daughter building sand castles? Was this some kind of weird power play? A test? Was she going to fire him on Monday anyway? And this was just her way of twisting the knife first? He filled the bucket with seawater and trudged back. Claire and Emma were talking quietly. As he got closer, he caught pieces of the conversation. My daddy works really hard, Emma was saying. He gets tired a lot. Does he? Claire's voice was neutral. Yeah, sometimes he falls asleep on the couch with his work papers everywhere. And he always looks worried about stuff. Logan's chest tightened painfully. He didn't realize Emma had noticed. But he's the best daddy, Emma continued firmly. He makes good pancakes, and he always does the voices different when we read stories, and he never forgets to pack my lunch, even when he's super tired. Claire didn't respond, just stared at the sandcastle. Logan arrived with the bucket. Got the water. Perfect. Emma grabbed it and started carefully pouring seawater into the moat. It soaked into the sand immediately, but for a few seconds, it looked like a real moat. Emma made a satisfied sound. There. Now it's a proper castle. It's beautiful, Claire said, and something in her voice sounded genuine, almost wistful. They sat there for a while in strange, uncomfortable silence. Other families played around them. Kids screamed. Radios played. The ocean roared. But in their little bubble, everything felt suspended and weird. Finally, Claire stood up and brushed sand off her wrap. I should go. Thank you for letting me help with your castle. You can come back and visit it later if you want, Emma offered generously. We're going to be here all day. Maybe. Claire's expression was unreadable again. She looked at Logan. See you Monday. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, a reminder that real life existed beyond this beach. Yeah, Monday. Claire nodded once and walked away down the beach, her posture straight and perfect even on the uneven sand. Logan exhaled shakily. She was nice, Emma said. Is she your friend from work? Something like that, baby. I liked her. She's pretty and she didn't treat me like I'm stupid. Logan watched Claire's figure get smaller in the distance. His mind was racing. That had been the weirdest interaction of his entire life. He still didn't know if he was fired or not. Didn't know if Monday would bring disaster or just more of the usual grinding stress. But Emma was happy. The castle stood proud on the sand, complete with its shell flag and newly dug moat. The ocean sparkled. The sun felt warm. For a few hours, Logan let himself pretend everything might actually be okay. They spent the rest of the afternoon building additions to the castle. Emma wanted a whole kingdom, with towers and walls and a stable for horses made of seaweed. Logan helped as best he could, though his brain kept wandering back to those few minutes with Claire. The way she'd sat so stiffly. The way she'd looked at Emma like she wasn't sure how to talk to a child. The way she'd seemed almost lonely. It made no sense. Claire Bennett was rich, powerful, successful beyond anything Logan could dream of achieving. What did she have to be lonely about? Around 4, they took a break to get ice cream from a vendor on the boardwalk. Emma got chocolate with rainbow sprinkles and immediately got it all over her face. Logan got vanilla because it was cheapest, and his budget for this trip was already stretched dangerously thin. "Can we come back tomorrow?" Emma asked, licking melted ice cream off her fingers. "Sure, sweetheart. And build another castle?" "As many castles as you want." Emma grinned, and Logan felt that familiar ache in his chest. She was so easy to please, so grateful for the smallest things. It made him feel both proud and inadequate at the same time. They walked back to the beach access point to rinse off the sand. Emma chattered about everything she'd seen, the pelicans, the boats in the distance, the big wave that had almost reached their castle. Logan listened and made appropriate sounds while his mind continued spinning. Monday. He had to face Claire Bennett on Monday. Had to walk into that office and pretend everything was normal while knowing she'd seen him at his most pathetic. Sweaty, exhausted, barely keeping it together, not the professional image he worked so hard to maintain. That evening, they checked into the cheap motel Logan had found online. It smelled like mildew and the carpet had questionable stains, but Emma didn't care. She was delighted by the tiny pool in the courtyard and the TV that got cartoon channels. Logan let her swim until the sun set, then wrestled her into the shower to get all the salt and sand out of her hair. She fell asleep almost immediately afterward, curled up in the saggy double bed with her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. Logan sat on the edge of the bed and watched her breathe. Her face was peaceful, slightly sunburned despite all the sunscreen he'd applied. A perfect little person who trusted him completely to keep her safe and happy and okay. He wasn't sure he was doing any of those things successfully. His phone buzzed. A text from his friend Marcus, one of the few people from work he actually talked to outside the office. "How's the beach trip?" "Good." "Emma's having fun." "That's what matters, man." "Yeah." A pause, then, "BTW. Did you know Bennett is in Florida this weekend?" Logan's stomach dropped. "How did you know that?" She sent an email Friday saying she'd be unavailable. Someone in accounting said her assistant mentioned Florida. Why? No reason. Just weird coincidence. Small world, I guess. "Try to relax, man. You deserve a break." Logan put the phone down and scrubbed his hands over his face. So Claire was here deliberately. On vacation, maybe. Or one of those working vacations where she probably spent the whole time in video conferences. Either way, she'd chosen this beach. And Logan had somehow managed to end up at the same one, make a complete fool of himself, and drag her into awkward sandcastle construction with his daughter. Perfect. Just perfect. He lay down next to Emma, careful not to wake her, and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Sleep felt impossible. His mind kept replaying those moments. Claire's face when she caught him looking, the way she'd walked over, the strange softness in her voice when she talked to Emma. "I used to build castles when I was little." It was the most personal thing he'd ever heard her say. At work, Claire was all business, all sharp edges and impossible standards. She never talked about herself, never revealed anything beyond what was necessary for the job. But for a few minutes today, she'd been something else, something almost human. Logan rolled onto his side and closed his eyes, listening to Emma's quiet breathing beside him. Tomorrow, they'd go back to the beach, build more castles, swim in the ocean, pretend real life didn't exist for a little while longer. And then Monday would come. Whatever happened then, Logan would handle it. He always did. He'd survived worse than an awkward beach encounter. Survived divorce, single parenthood, Poverty that kept him awake at night calculating which bills he could delay. Survived the grinding exhaustion of trying to be everything Emma needed while barely keeping his career afloat. He'd survive Monday too. He had to, because Emma was counting on him, and he'd rather die than let her down. But the next morning dawned bright and hot, the kind of aggressive Florida sunshine that made the motel's broken air conditioning feel like a personal attack. Logan woke to Emma bouncing on the bed, already in her swimsuit. Beach day, beach day. Get up, Daddy. Okay, I'm up. He wasn't. His body felt like it had been run over by something large and angry. But Emma was excited, so he dragged himself upright and went through the morning routine on autopilot. Pack the bag. Check. Sunscreen everywhere. Check. Grab the sad cooler with their sandwiches and warm juice boxes. Check. They were back at the beach by 9. The morning crowd was lighter, mostly older couples and serious swimmers. Logan found their spot from yesterday, or close enough, and spread out the towel. Emma immediately started rebuilding her castle, determined to make this one even better. Logan settled in with a book he'd been trying to read for 3 months and had made it through maybe 50 pages of. The words blurred together. He couldn't focus. Kept glancing up and down the beach, waiting for Claire to appear like some kind of designer-wrapped ghost of his professional anxiety. She didn't show up. By noon, Logan had relaxed slightly. Maybe yesterday had been her only beach day. Maybe she'd gone back to whatever expensive resort she was probably staying at. Maybe he'd actually get through the weekend without any more nightmare encounters. Daddy, I'm hungry. Okay, baby. Sandwich time. They ate their sad peanut butter sandwiches in the shade of the beach umbrella Logan had borrowed from the motel. Emma chattered between bites about all the shells she'd found and how she was going to take them home and make a collection. Can we stay longer tomorrow? She asked. Before we drive home? Ooh, we have to leave early, Em. I've got work Monday. Her face fell. Oh. But we'll come back again, maybe in a few months. Promise? Logan's chest hurt. He couldn't afford another beach trip for at least a year, but he couldn't tell her that. I promise. Emma seemed satisfied with that answer. She finished her sandwich and immediately ran back to the castle construction zone. The afternoon passed in a lazy blur. Emma played. Logan dozed off at one point and woke up disoriented, his neck stiff from the awkward angle. The sun had shifted. The beach was more crowded now, the Sunday afternoon rush in full swing. Emma was right where he'd left her, but she wasn't alone. Claire was there. She was sitting cross-legged in the sand about 3 feet from Emma's castle, wearing a different swimsuit today, dark green, equally expensive looking, and actually helping Emma construct some kind of elaborate tower system. Logan's heart jumped into his throat. How long had he been asleep? How long had Claire been sitting there? Why was this happening again? He sat up quickly. Emma noticed and waved. Daddy, look! Claire came back. She's helping me build the dragon tower. Claire glanced over, her expression carefully neutral. Your daughter has very specific architectural requirements, she said. Apparently dragons need extra ventilation. They breathe fire, Emma explained seriously. So the tower needs windows or it gets too hot inside. That makes sense, Logan managed. His voice sounded weird. Everything felt weird. Claire went back to shaping sand with careful, precise movements. She had good hands, Logan noticed, then immediately felt creepy for noticing. Long fingers, neat nails, the kind of hands that looked like they belonged in a conference room, not digging in beach sand. I can take over if you want, Logan offered weakly. I'm sure you have better things to do. It's fine. I was just walking by and Emma asked if I wanted to see her progress. Claire knows about castles, Emma announced. She told me about one she saw in France. You went to France? Emma's eyes were huge. For work, a few months ago. Did you see the Eiffel Tower? Yes. Was it big? Very big. Wow. The conversation felt surreal. Logan's feared CEO was sitting in the sand discussing the Eiffel Tower with his 6-year-old daughter like it was the most natural thing in the world. He should say something, do something, but his brain had completely short-circuited. Claire finished the Dragon Tower and sat back, brushing sand off her hands. There, structurally sound with optimal ventilation. Perfect, Emma clapped. Now we need to build the village. Dragons need people to protect. I don't know about that, Claire said slowly. Don't dragons usually attack villages? Not nice dragons. Nice dragons protect people from bad dragons. I wasn't aware there was a distinction. Oh yeah, nice dragons are the best. They're super strong and they can breathe fire, but they only use it for good things like keeping people warm and roasting marshmallows. Claire's mouth twitched slightly. It might have been the beginning of a smile. That sounds like a very useful dragon to have. Exactly. Logan watched this exchange, feeling like he'd slipped into an alternate universe. Claire Bennett, the woman who'd made a senior partner cry during a merger negotiation, was having a sincere conversation about dragon ethics with a 6-year-old. A beach ball rolled over from a nearby group and bonked against their castle. Emma's carefully constructed dragon tower collapsed. No! Emma's face crumpled. The kids who owned the ball ran over to grab it, laughing and oblivious. Claire stood up so fast Logan barely saw her move. Watch where you're throwing that, she said. Her voice sharp and cold, the voice Logan recognized from the office. The kids froze. One of them, a teenager, looked annoyed. Chill out, lady. It's just sand. It's a castle your carelessness destroyed. Apologize. Eat. The teenager rolled his eyes, but something in Claire's expression made him mutter, "Sorry, kid," toward Emma before grabbing the ball and jogging away. Claire sat back down, her jaw tight. You didn't have to do that, Logan said quietly. Yes, I did. She worked hard on that. People should pay attention to their surroundings. Emma was already rebuilding the tower, her brief sadness forgotten. Claire immediately started helping her, her movements precise and controlled. They worked in silence for a while. Logan felt like he should leave them to it, but also felt like he couldn't abandon his daughter with his boss. Even though technically they were all in public and nothing weird was happening, everything was weird. The whole situation was categorically weird. Mr. Hayes, Claire said suddenly, not looking up from the sand. When you come in tomorrow, stop by my office before you start your usual routine. Logan's stomach plummeted. Here it was, the firing, the humiliation, the end of everything. Okay, he managed. 9:30. Don't be late. I won't. Emma, oblivious to the tension, chattered on about dragon dietary preferences. Claire responded with what seemed like genuine interest, but Logan could see the stiffness in her shoulders, the careful way she kept her expressions neutral. She stayed for another 20 minutes, then stood up and brushed off sand with sharp, efficient movements. I have a call I need to take. Thank you for letting me help with your castle, Emma. Huh? Thanks for coming back, Emma beamed at her. You can come back tomorrow too if you want. We're going to build a whole dragon kingdom. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Claire's voice was flat. But maybe I'll see your dad at work. She nodded once at Logan and walked away without another word. Emma turned to her dad. She's nice. I like her. Why does she seem sad? I don't know, baby. But Logan wondered the same thing. That night, after Emma fell asleep, Logan lay awake and stared at his phone. He should be preparing for whatever Monday would bring, should be going over projects, checking emails, making sure everything was perfect so that when Claire fired him, at least she couldn't claim it was about his work quality. Instead, he kept thinking about the way she'd sat in the sand, the way she'd looked at Emma's castle like it mattered, the way she'd defended Emma's tower from careless teenagers with the same intensity she brought to business negotiations. Claire Bennett was lonely. He didn't know how he knew that, but he was absolutely certain. Under all that polish and power and perfection, she was lonely in a way that felt familiar. The kind of lonely that came from being so busy surviving that you forgot how to actually live. Logan knew that lonely. He lived it every single day. His phone buzzed, another text from Marcus. Good luck tomorrow, man. Whatever meeting she wants, you'll be fine. You're one of the best analysts we have. Thanks. Seriously, don't stress. Bennett's intense, but she's fair. Logan wasn't sure fair mattered when you'd accidentally seen your boss in a compromising position at the beach. Twice. He put the phone down and closed his eyes. Emma's breathing was steady beside him. Outside, he could hear the ocean, that constant rhythmic sound that should have been soothing but just made him feel more anxious. Tomorrow, they'd drive home. 7 hours back to reality, back to their tiny apartment and overwhelming responsibilities and the grinding daily stress of barely keeping their heads above water. And then Monday, he'd walk into Claire Bennett's office and find out if this weekend had destroyed everything. He had a feeling his life was about to change. He just wasn't sure if it would be for better or worse. The drive back to Atlanta felt longer than the drive down. Emma slept most of the way, exhausted from 2 days of sun and sand, her cheek pressed against the window and her stuffed rabbit clutched in her arms. Logan's hands gripped the steering wheel too tight, his shoulders locked in a permanent tension that made his neck ache. 9:30. Claire's office. Tomorrow. The words played on loop in his head like a song he couldn't escape. Every possible version of that conversation ran through his mind, each one worse than the last. She'd call him in, close the door, and tell him his services were no longer needed. She'd be professional about it probably. Claire Bennett didn't seem like the type to yell. She'd just look at him with those cold, unreadable eyes and end his career with the same efficiency she brought to everything else. They got home just after 9. The apartment felt smaller and dingier after 2 days away, the walls closing in like they always did when reality reasserted itself. Logan carried Emma inside, still half asleep, and tucked her into bed without bothering to change her out of her clothes. She mumbled something about dragons and sandcastles and then was gone, breathing deep and even. Logan stood in her doorway for a long moment, watching her. The nightlight shaped like a moon cast soft shadows across her face. She looked peaceful, safe, completely trusting that tomorrow would be okay because Daddy always made things okay. Except tomorrow, Daddy might come home without a job. He closed her door quietly and walked to the kitchen. The sink was still full of dishes from before they'd left. The trash needed taking out. Bills were stacked on the counter, some of them already overdue. The refrigerator hummed loudly, a sound that meant it was probably dying and would need replacing soon with money Logan absolutely didn't have. He sat down at the kitchen table and put his head in his hands. The sensible thing would be to start looking for new jobs tonight, update his resume, reach out to contacts, prepare for the worst. But Logan was so tired he couldn't think straight, tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion, down into his bones and soul. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Don't be late tomorrow. CB." Logan stared at the message. Claire Bennett had his personal cell number. When had that happened? Had she looked it up in the company directory? Why would she bother texting him at all instead of just waiting until morning? He typed back, "I'll be there." The response came almost immediately. Good. Nothing else. No context. No hint about what tomorrow would bring. Just that single word and then silence. Logan set the phone down and rubbed his eyes. Sleep seemed impossible, but he had to try. He stumbled to his bedroom, didn't bother changing, just fell onto the bed and closed his eyes. His dreams were full of sandcastles collapsing and Claire's face, expressionless and cold, telling him to pack his desk. The alarm went off at 6. Logan dragged himself upright, feeling like he'd been hit by something large and merciless. His mouth tasted awful, his head throbbed, everything hurt. He went through the morning routine on autopilot. Shower, coffee, wake Emma up and guide her through getting dressed while she complained about having to go back to school tomorrow. Make breakfast, pack lunch, walk her to the bus stop 3 blocks away and kiss her forehead before she climbed aboard. "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, baby. Have a good day." The bus pulled away. Emma waved from a window. Logan waved back, his chest tight. Then he walked to his car, got in, and drove toward the office with a sense of impending doom sitting heavy in his stomach. Bennett Consulting Group occupied the top 4 floors of a glass tower in Midtown. Logan had always thought the building looked cold and sterile, all sharp angles and reflective surfaces that seemed designed to intimidate. He parked in the garage, took the elevator up, and stepped into the reception area at exactly 8:45. The office was already busy, people rushing past with coffee and tablets, conference rooms filling up, phones ringing. Logan headed to his desk in the analyst's bullpen, a gray cubicle farm where 20-some people sat too close together and pretended they weren't slowly losing their minds. Marcus looked up from his computer as Logan dropped his bag. "Hey man, how was the beach?" "Good. Emma had fun." "That's what matters." Marcus studied him. "You okay? You look like hell." Didn't sleep great. "Meeting with Bennett this morning, right? I saw it on your calendar." Word traveled fast. Logan shouldn't have been surprised. "Yeah, 9:30. "What's it about?" "No idea." That was a lie, but Logan wasn't about to explain the beach disaster to Marcus. wasn't about to admit that he'd accidentally seen their CEO in a state of partial undress, and now his entire career was probably imploding. "You'll be fine," Marcus said. "Seriously, she wouldn't waste time with a meeting if she was just going to fire you. She'd have HR do that." The logic made sense but did nothing to calm Logan's nerves. He tried to work, opened his email and stared at the new messages without comprehending any of them. A client report needed finishing by end of day. 3 meetings were scheduled for the afternoon. Everything seemed simultaneously urgent and completely pointless. At 9:20, he gave up pretending to focus and headed toward the elevator. Claire's office was on the top floor, a space most employees never saw. Logan had only been up there once, during his initial interview 3 years ago. The elevator doors opened onto a different world. Where the lower floors were all industrial chic and open-plan chaos, the executive level was quiet and expensively minimalist. Real art on the walls, actual plants that someone clearly maintained. Carpets so thick, Logan's footsteps made no sound. Claire's assistant sat at a desk outside the corner office. She was maybe 50, perfectly professional, with the kind of expression that gave away nothing. "Logan Hayes," he said. "I have a 9:30 with Ms. Bennett." "She's expecting you. Go ahead in." Logan's heart hammered. He approached the door, knocked once, and heard Claire's voice from inside. "Come in." He opened the door and stepped into the office. It was exactly what he'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, sleek furniture, everything perfectly organized and impersonal. No photos, no personal items, just a space designed for work and nothing else. Claire sat behind her desk, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Logan's rent. Her hair was pulled back severely. She looked every inch the powerful CEO, nothing like the woman who'd sat in the sand helping Emma build dragon towers. "Close the door and sit down." Logan did, his mouth dry. The chair across from her desk was expensive and uncomfortable in that way designer furniture always seemed to be. Claire studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "How was the drive back?" The question caught him off guard. "Fine." Emma slept most of the way. "Good." Claire tapped a pen against her desk. "I'm going to be direct with you, Mr. Hayes. This weekend was unexpected for both of us." Here it comes, Logan thought. The end of everything. "I want to make something very clear," Claire continued, her voice flat and professional. "What happened at the beach was an accident. The wind, the unfortunate timing, none of that was your fault, and I'm not holding it against you." Logan blinked. "You're not?" "No. You looked uncomfortable and embarrassed, which is the appropriate reaction to an awkward situation. You didn't leer. You didn't make comments. You attempted to ignore it and focus on your daughter. That's exactly what you should have done." Relief flooded through Logan so intensely he felt dizzy. "I was worried you thought—" "I know what you were worried about. I'm telling you it's not an issue." Claire set the pen down. "However, I do want to discuss something else about this weekend." The relief evaporated immediately. "Your daughter, Claire said. Logan's protective instincts flared. "What about her?" "She's 6 years old, correct?" "Yes." "And you're raising her alone." It wasn't a question, but Logan answered anyway. "Yes." "How long?" 2 years, since my ex-wife left." Claire nodded slowly, like she was processing information. "Emma mentioned you fall asleep with work papers everywhere, that you look worried a lot, that you work very hard." Bushdi mama. Logan's face burned. He didn't know whether to be embarrassed or angry that his 6-year-old had apparently narrated his entire pathetic life to his boss. "I manage fine. I'm sure you do." Claire's voice was still neutral, but something in her eyes had shifted. "I pulled your file this morning. Your performance reviews are consistently excellent. Your work quality is high. But I also noticed you've declined every promotion opportunity for the past 18 months. Turned down 3 projects that would have advanced your career. Never stay late for client dinners. Always leave exactly at 5. Logan's jaw tightened. "I have responsibilities at home." "I know. That's my point." Claire leaned forward slightly. "The current structure of this company makes it nearly impossible for parents, especially single parents, to advance. That's a problem." Logan didn't know what to say. Was this still about firing him? It didn't sound like it, but he couldn't tell where this was going. I'm implementing some changes, Claire said, starting with a new policy on flexible schedules and work-from-home options for employees with childcare responsibilities. I'm also restructuring the promotion criteria to account for factors beyond raw hours worked. Logan stared at her. Why are you telling me this? Because you're going to help me design it. Claire pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. I'm putting together a task force to overhaul our employee policies. I want you on it. The work will be in addition to your current responsibilities, but I'm authorizing a 20% salary increase to compensate for the extra workload. Logan's brain short-circuited. I don't understand. Which part? Any of it. Why me? Why this? Claire was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost careful. I spent most of my childhood watching my father work himself to death building this company. He was a single parent too after my mother passed when I was 8. He sacrificed everything for me and for this business. And I loved him for it, but I also saw what it cost him. She paused. I saw what it cost both of us. The admission hung in the air between them. It was the most personal thing Logan had ever heard Claire say, and it clearly wasn't easy for her. This company built its success on the backs of people like you and my father, Claire continued. People who work themselves into exhaustion because they don't have a choice. That needs to change. I've been planning these reforms for months, but I needed the right person to help implement them. Someone who actually understands what parents are dealing with. Someone who won't just create performative policies that look good on paper but don't actually help. And you think that's me? I watched you with Emma. I saw how you are with her. You're not just surviving, Mr. Hayes. You're actually being present. You're building sandcastles and buying her ice cream and making sure she knows she's loved, all while managing a demanding career. That takes a kind of strength most people in this building have never had to develop. Claire's expression was carefully neutral, but her eyes were intense. So yes, I think that's you. Logan sat there, completely overwhelmed. This wasn't at all what he'd expected, not even close. I need an answer, Claire said. Are you interested or not? Yes. The word came out automatically. Yes, I'm interested. Good. We'll have our first meeting Wednesday afternoon. I'll send the details. Claire stood up, clearly ending the conversation. In the meantime, keep doing your regular work. Nothing changes until the new policies are officially approved. Logan stood too, still feeling like he'd stepped into an alternate universe. Ms. Bennett, Claire is fine when we're discussing this project. That felt wrong on multiple levels, but Logan nodded. Claire, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why did you really sit down with Emma that first day? At the beach? Claire's expression shuddered immediately. For a moment, Logan thought she wouldn't answer. Then she sighed, barely perceptible. Because she asked me to, and no one ever just asks me to do normal things. Everyone's always performing for me, trying to impress me, trying to use me for something. She looked out the window at the city below. Your daughter just wanted help with her sandcastle. It was the most honest interaction I've had with another person in months. The admission was so raw, so unexpectedly vulnerable, that Logan didn't know how to respond. Thank you, he finally said, for sitting with her. She really enjoyed it. So did I. Claire's voice had gone flat again, professional. That's all, Mr. Hayes. I'll see you Wednesday. Logan took the dismissal for what it was and left, closing the door quietly behind him. He made it back to the elevator before his hands started shaking. The relief was so intense it made him lightheaded. Not fired, not even in trouble. Actually getting a raise and a promotion and a chance to change things that had been broken since long before he joined this company. The elevator doors opened and Marcus practically jumped him in the hallway. Well, what happened? You still employed? Yeah, I'm still employed. And? Come on, man, you look shell-shocked. What did she want? Logan couldn't explain it. Wasn't even sure he understood it himself yet. She's putting me on a task force. Policy reforms for work-life balance. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. Seriously? Apparently. That's huge. That's like a massive visibility opportunity. Bennett doesn't just hand those out randomly. I guess not. They walked back toward their desks. Marcus kept talking, but Logan barely heard him. His mind was stuck on Claire's face when she talked about her father, the way her voice had softened, the loneliness underneath all that polish and power. She'd been just like him once, a kid with a single parent who worked too hard. Someone who understood what it meant to sacrifice everything and still wonder if it was enough. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Logan went to his meetings, finished the client report, responded to emails. But his mind kept drifting back to that conversation, to the weight of Claire's expectations, to the fact that she'd trusted him with something real. He left at 5, exactly, like always, picked up Emma from after-school care and took her home. They made spaghetti together, or rather Logan made it while Emma sat at the kitchen table and chattered about her day. Something about a boy named Jake who'd pushed her on the playground. Something about a spelling test on Friday she was worried about. "Did you have a good day at work, Daddy?" "Yeah, actually, I did." "Did you see Claire?" The question startled him. "I did, actually. How did you know?" "You said she works with you. I thought maybe you'd see her." "I had a meeting with her this morning." Emma's face lit up. "Really? Did you tell her about my sandcastle? The one we finished after she left?" "No, baby. We talked about work stuff." "Oh." Emma stirred her spaghetti thoughtfully. "Is she nice at work too?" Logan thought about Claire's controlled expression, the careful way she measured every word, the walls she kept up constantly. "She's professional," he said carefully. "Very good at her job. But is she nice? I think she tries to be." Emma seemed satisfied with that answer. After dinner, they read 3 chapters of the book they were working through together. Something about a girl who discovered magic in her grandmother's garden. Emma fell asleep before the 3rd chapter ended, her head heavy against Logan's arm. He carried her to bed, tucked her in, and stood in the doorway again, just watching her breathe. The apartment felt less oppressive tonight. The bills on the counter didn't seem quite as threatening. Everything felt slightly more manageable. Logan pulled out his phone and stared at Claire's text from the night before. That single word, good. He typed out a message before he could overthink it. "Thank you for this morning, for the opportunity, and for trusting me with it." He hit send before his nerve failed. The response came 5 minutes later, after Logan had already started washing dishes and convinced himself she wouldn't answer. "You're welcome. Don't make me regret it." Logan smiled despite himself. That sounded like the Claire he knew from the office. Direct, a little bit threatening, completely in control. But underneath that message, he could hear the other Claire. The one who'd sat in the sand and talked about dragons with his daughter. The one who'd admitted she was lonely without saying the actual words. He finished the dishes, paid 2 of the bills on the counter, and went to bed feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The next few days fell into their normal routine, except nothing felt quite normal anymore. Logan went to work, did his job, took care of Emma. But now there was this new thing hanging in the air. The task force, the policy changes, the fact that Claire Bennett had looked at him and seen something worth investing in. Wednesday afternoon arrived too fast. Logan left his desk at 2:30 and headed back up to the executive floor. This time he was directed to a conference room, sleek and modern with a long table and uncomfortable chairs. 3 other people were already there. Logan recognized 2 of them from other departments. The third was someone from HR he'd never met. They all looked as confused as he felt about why they'd been selected. Claire walked in at exactly 3 o'clock. She wore a navy suit today, her hair down but perfectly styled. She carried a leather portfolio and moved with the kind of confidence that made people automatically defer to her. Logan watched the other task force members straighten in their chairs, their expressions carefully neutral. Claire set down the portfolio and got straight to business. "Thank you all for being here. I'll keep this brief because I know everyone has other responsibilities. This task force exists for one reason: to make this company a place where talented people can actually have lives outside of work." She looked around the table. "Right now, we promote based on FaceTime and after-hours availability. That's lazy management, and it costs us good employees. We're going to change that." She outlined the scope of the project: research phase, policy drafting, pilot program, company-wide implementation. It was ambitious and comprehensive and would probably take 6 months to a year to fully execute. "I chose each of you specifically," Claire said. "You represent different departments and different life situations. Logan Hayes is our single-parent perspective." She gestured toward him. "Sarah Chen is managing elder care for her mother while working full-time. Marcus Rodriguez has twins under 3. And Jennifer Kim just came back from maternity leave. You're not here because you're experts in HR policy. You're here because you live the problems we're trying to solve. The meeting lasted 90 minutes. They discussed everything from flexible scheduling to remote work policies to childcare subsidies to promotion criteria reform. Claire facilitated with razor-sharp focus, cutting through tangents and keeping everyone on track. But she also listened, really listened when people shared their experiences. When Logan mentioned the impossibility of making client dinners that ran until 9, Claire made a note. When Sarah talked about having to use vacation days for her mother's doctor appointments, Claire asked follow-up questions. She was building something real here, not just checking a corporate responsibility box. I want initial research completed in 2 weeks, Claire said as the meeting wound down. Logan, you'll focus on single-parent needs and childcare issues. Sarah, elder care and medical leave. Marcus, dual-income families with young children. Jennifer, new parent transitions. Compile data from other companies. Interview employees here. Identify pain points. We'll reconvene to synthesize findings. Everyone nodded. Claire closed her portfolio with a decisive snap. One more thing, everything discussed in this room stays confidential until we're ready to announce. I don't want speculation or rumors undermining this work. Clear? A chorus of agreement. Good. That's all. People filed out. Logan started to follow, but Claire's voice stopped him. Hayes, stay back a moment. His stomach tensed automatically. The other task force members glanced back curiously but kept walking. Then it was just Logan and Claire in the conference room. She waited until the door closed. You didn't say much in there. I was listening, taking it all in. I need you to contribute more than that. I brought you onto this project because you have insights the rest of us don't. I need you to share them. Logan bristled slightly. I was trying not to dominate the conversation. Everyone else had good points. 1%. They did, but you're the one who lives closest to the edge. Single income, no safety net. If anyone understands what's actually at stake with these policies, it's you. Claire's gaze was intense. I need you to be honest about what would actually help. Not what sounds good. Not what seems politically safe to suggest. What would actually make your life manageable? The directness threw him off balance. Honestly? Always. Logan took a breath. Reliable work-from-home options. Not as a special accommodation, but as a standard choice. Because getting Emma to before care and then fighting traffic to get here by 8 is the worst part of most days. An emergency leave that doesn't count against vacation time. Because kids get sick, and schools close, and emergencies happen, and parents shouldn't have to choose between losing vacation days or losing their jobs. Claire nodded, still watching him. What else? Stop penalizing people who leave at 5. Stop acting like working late means working hard. I get more done between 8 and 5 than most people do in 12 hours because I can't afford to waste time. But I still get passed over for promotions because I don't stay for drinks or work weekends or put in FaceTime after hours. Well, that's exactly the kind of honesty I need. Claire's expression was unreadable. Keep that energy for the research phase. Interview parents in the company. Find out what they're not saying in surveys because they're afraid it'll hurt their careers. Okay. And Hayes, don't assume I don't understand what it's like. I grew up watching this company consume my father. I know exactly what it costs. The vulnerability in that admission caught Logan off guard again. Before he could respond, Claire grabbed her portfolio and headed for the door. Send me your research plan by Friday. Then she was gone, leaving Logan alone in the conference room. He walked back to his desk in a daze. The work ahead seemed enormous, but for the first time in years, Logan felt like he was doing something that mattered beyond just surviving paycheck to paycheck. That night, after Emma went to bed, Logan started making lists. Parents to interview, questions to ask, data to gather. He worked until almost midnight, energized in a way he hadn't been since before his divorce. His phone buzzed. Another message from Claire. Don't burn out before the real work starts. Get some sleep. Logan smiled. Of course she was still working too. Probably in her expensive condo somewhere, surrounded by the same kind of sterile perfection as her office. He wondered if she ever just relaxed. If she ever sat on a couch in old sweatpants and watched bad TV and let herself be something other than the Ice Queen. He typed back, same to you. A pause. Then, noted, Logan set the phone down and leaned back in his chair. The apartment was quiet. Emma's nightlight glowed from a room. Outside, the city hummed with its usual nighttime sounds. Everything was changing. Logan could feel it. Not in some huge, dramatic way, but in small shifts. The way Claire had looked at him during the meeting. The way she'd acknowledged her own past. The way Emma had asked about her like Claire was someone who mattered. It felt dangerous, like standing at the edge of something he didn't fully understand yet. But it also felt right. Logan shut down his laptop and headed to bed. Tomorrow he'd start the research, start interviewing people, start building something that might actually make things better. And somewhere across the city, Claire Bennett was probably doing the exact same thing, alone in her perfect empty apartment, working herself into exhaustion because she didn't know how to do anything else. They were more alike than Logan had ever realized. That thought followed him into sleep, along with the memory of Claire's voice saying she'd been lonely for months. Maybe they could change that too. The research consumed Logan's life for the next 2 weeks, in a way that felt almost good. He interviewed 17 parents across different departments, stayed up late compiling data, and discovered that nearly everyone had some version of the same story. They were all exhausted, all sacrificing, all pretending they had everything under control while slowly drowning. A woman in accounting cried when Logan asked what would actually help her manage better. She had 3 kids under 10 and a husband who traveled constantly for work. "I just need to not feel guilty every time I leave at 5, she said. "I need to stop apologizing for having a life outside this building." A guy in IT admitted he'd turned down 2 promotions because the new roles required weekend availability, and he had custody of his teenage daughter every other week. "I keep telling myself it's temporary," he said, "that once she's older I can focus on my career again. But I'm 41. How much of my career am I supposed to just put on hold?" Logan wrote it all down. Every story, every frustration, every quiet desperation that people were too afraid to voice in official channels because they feared it would mark them as not committed enough, not hungry enough, not willing to sacrifice everything for the company. He compiled it into a report that was rawer and more honest than anything he'd ever written for work. Then he sent it to Claire at 11 on a Thursday night and immediately regretted it. Maybe he'd been too honest. Maybe he'd crossed some line by including direct quotes that made the company sound toxic. Maybe he'd just torpedoed the one good opportunity he'd been given. His phone rang 5 minutes later, Claire's name on the screen. Logan's heart jumped. She never called. Everything was always email or text. "Hello? I just finished reading your report." Claire's voice was tight, controlled. "Are these quotes verbatim?" "Yes." "I recorded the interviews with permission and transcribed directly." "The woman in accounting who cried. Who was that?" "I promised confidentiality to everyone. I can't give you names." A pause. "You're right. I shouldn't have asked." Another pause. "This is damning, Hayes. You realize that?" Yes. Logan's stomach sank. "I was trying to be honest about what people actually experience. You said you wanted honesty." "I did. I do." Claire exhaled sharply. "This is good work. Difficult to read, but good. The kind of data we need to justify major policy overhauls." Her voice shifted slightly. "How are you holding up? This couldn't have been easy to compile." The question caught him off guard. It was the first time Claire had asked him anything personal since the beach. "I'm fine. It needed to be done." "You interviewed people while working full-time and raising Emma alone. That's not fine. That's barely sustainable." A pause. "When's the last time you took a real break?" "I don't know. A while." "The beach doesn't count. That was 2 days." Claire sounded almost frustrated now. "You can't run yourself into the ground." "Hayes, I need you functional for the next phase of this project." "I said I'm fine." "You're lying." Logan bristled. "Excuse me? I've watched you for 2 weeks. You look exhausted. You're drinking too much coffee. You've lost weight you didn't have to lose. You're doing exactly what this project is supposed to prevent people from having to do." Claire's voice was sharp. "Take tomorrow off. That's not a suggestion." "I have client meetings tomorrow." "I'll handle them. You can't just—" "I'm the CEO. I can do whatever I want. Take the day off. Spend it with Emma. Sleep. Do something that isn't work." She didn't wait for his response. "Your report is excellent." For his, "We'll discuss it at the next task force meeting." Get some rest, Hayes. She hung up before Logan could argue. He sat there staring at his phone, completely thrown off balance. Claire Bennett had just ordered him to take a day off because she was worried about him burning out. The same woman who worked 18-hour days and expected everyone else to match her intensity. It didn't make sense. Unless she saw something of herself in him. Unless watching him work himself into exhaustion reminded her of her father, or reminded her of herself. Logan set the phone down and rubbed his eyes. He was exhausted, hadn't been sleeping well, had been surviving on coffee and anxiety for days. Maybe she was right. Maybe he did need a break. He texted Marcus to cover his meetings tomorrow, then sent a quick message to Claire. Thank you. The response came immediately. Stop thanking me and go to sleep. Logan smiled despite himself. He shut down his laptop, checked on Emma, and actually went to bed at a reasonable hour for the first time in weeks. The next morning felt strange. Logan woke up at his usual time out of habit, then remembered he didn't have anywhere to be. Emma was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with her cereal and a coloring book. No work today? She asked, looking up. Nope. I'm taking the day off. Her face lit up like he'd just announced Christmas. Really? We can do stuff together? Whatever you want, baby. Emma bounced in her chair. Can we go to the park and get ice cream? And maybe go to the library? Sure, all of that. They spent the morning at the park near their apartment. Emma played on the swings while Logan sat on a bench and just watched her. Really watched her. Not distracted by work emails or stress about bills. She'd gotten taller recently. Her hair was lighter from the summer sun. She moved with this unselfconscious joy that made Logan's chest ache. When had he last just sat and watched her play? When had he last been fully present instead of mentally running through his to-do list? Daddy, push me higher! Logan got up and pushed her swing, and Emma shrieked with laughter. Other parents were scattered around the playground, some on their phones, some watching their kids with the same tired expression Logan usually wore. One mom caught his eye and smiled in a way that said she recognized the exhaustion. They got ice cream afterward, then spent an hour at the library. Emma picked out 5 books, way more than Logan would normally allow because she never finished them all before they were due back. But today he didn't care. Today he just said yes and let her stack them up excitedly. Can we read one when we get home? Emma asked as they walked back to the car. Absolutely, Ma. They spent the afternoon on the couch reading. Emma curled up against his side, her head on his shoulder, completely absorbed in a story about a fox who learned to fly. Logan felt something loosen in his chest that had been tight for months, maybe years. This was what mattered, this right here, not the promotions he'd turned down or the client meetings or the endless grind of trying to prove himself at work. This moment with his daughter, safe and happy and loved. His phone buzzed. A text from Claire. How's your day off? Logan stared at the message. It was 4 in the afternoon on a Friday. Claire should be in back-to-back meetings, not checking in on him. He typed back one-handed, careful not to disturb Emma. Good. At home reading with Emma. That's the right answer. See you Monday. Logan set the phone down and went back to the story. But his mind wandered. Why did Claire care how he spent his day off? Why did she keep checking in on him personally instead of just treating him like another employee on a project? The question nagged at him through dinner, through Emma's bath time, through the bedtime routine. After Emma fell asleep, Logan found himself pulling out his laptop and doing something he knew was probably a bad idea. He searched for information about Claire's father. There wasn't much. Some old articles about Bennett Consulting Group's founding 30 years ago. A brief obituary from 3 years ago listing Claire as his only surviving family. One profile piece from a business magazine that mentioned he'd been a widower who built the company from nothing while raising his daughter alone. The pieces fit together. Claire's father had been exactly like Logan. A single parent working impossible hours to provide for his kid. And Claire had grown up watching him sacrifice everything. No wonder she'd sat down at Emma's sandcastle. No wonder she'd seemed so uncomfortable around a happy 6-year-old. No wonder she'd built her entire professional identity around being untouchable and perfect and never needing anyone. She'd learned from the best that letting people in was a weakness you couldn't afford. Logan closed the laptop feeling like he'd invaded her privacy somehow. But he also felt like he understood her better now. Understood why she worked so hard. Why she seemed so lonely. Why she'd looked at him that morning in her office and seen something worth investing in. She was trying to fix the system that had broken her father, and by extension, had broken her. Monday morning arrived too fast. Logan dropped Emma at school and headed to the office feeling more rested than he had in weeks, but also weirdly nervous. He wasn't sure what to expect from Claire after their text exchange. Would she acknowledge it? Pretend it hadn't happened? Treat him the same as always? He got his answer when he found a coffee on his desk at 8:30. The good coffee from the expensive place downstairs, not the sludge from the break room. A note was attached in Claire's precise handwriting. Fuel for the week ahead, CB. Marcus appeared at his cubicle wall immediately. Who bought you coffee? A friend. What friend? You don't have friends. Thanks for that. I'm serious. Who bought you the fancy coffee? Logan took a sip instead of answering. It was perfect, exactly how he liked it, which meant Claire had either asked someone or paid attention when they'd grabbed coffee during one of their task force meetings. Both options felt significant in ways Logan didn't want to examine. The week passed in a blur of regular work and task force preparation. The next meeting was scheduled for Wednesday, and Logan spent every spare moment refining his research and preparing to present findings. The other task force members had apparently been equally thorough. Sarah's report on elder care needs was brutal. Marcus had compiled data on childcare costs that made Logan's financial stress look manageable by comparison. Wednesday afternoon, they reconvened in the same conference room. Claire arrived exactly on time, carrying her leather portfolio and wearing an expression that gave nothing away. Let's start with Hayes, she said, settling into her chair. Walk us through your findings. Peace. Logan pulled up his presentation on the conference room screen and started talking. He laid out the data, shared anonymized quotes, explained the patterns he'd found across all 17 interviews. The room was silent except for his voice and the quiet sound of people taking notes. When he finished, Claire leaned back in her chair and studied the screen. Recommendations? She asked. Logan pulled up his final slide. Mandatory work-from-home options at least twice a week for all employees with documented childcare responsibilities. Protected 5 o'clock end times with no penalty to career advancement. Emergency leave separate from vacation time. Evaluation criteria that measures output and quality instead of hours logged. And he paused. And a company culture shift away from the idea that working constantly equals working hard. That last one's not a policy, Jennifer from HR pointed out. That's a mindset change, much harder to implement. It's also the most important one, Logan said. You can create all the policies you want, but if the culture still punishes people for using them, nothing actually changes. Claire nodded slowly. Agreed, which is why we need to start at the top. Leadership has to model the behavior we want to see. She looked around the table. That includes me. I'm going to start leaving at 6. Working from home 2 days a week. Actually taking my vacation time. If I don't, no one else will feel safe doing it. The room went silent. Claire Bennett, the woman who practically lived at the office, was voluntarily reducing her hours. Marcus looked like he'd been hit by something large. You're serious? Completely. This company's culture is my responsibility. If I want it to change, I have to change first. Claire opened her portfolio and started making notes. Sarah, walk us through your elder care research. The meeting continued for another hour. By the end, they had a rough framework for what the new policies could look like. It was ambitious and would require executive approval and probably months of implementation. But it felt possible. As everyone filed out, Claire caught Logan's arm. Stay back. Here we go again, Logan thought. But this time he wasn't nervous, just curious. Claire waited until the door closed, then turned to face him. Your presentation was excellent. The recommendations are exactly what we need. She paused. But I want to talk about something else. Okay, Emma's birthday is coming up. Next month, correct? Logan blinked, completely thrown by the subject change. How did you know that? You mentioned it during one of your interviews. Said something about needing to budget for a birthday party. Claire's expression was carefully neutral. I'd like to contribute. What? No. You don't have to. Ooh. I'm not offering out of pity, Hayes. I'm offering because Emma was kind to me at the beach, when she had no reason to be. She let me help with her castle, made me feel welcome. Kids that age are honest. If she was willing to include me, it meant something. Claire's voice was stiff, like the words were difficult. I'd like to give her a gift, if that's acceptable to you. Logan didn't know what to say. The offer was generous and weird and inappropriate in about 15 different ways, given that Claire was his boss. But it was also oddly touching. Claire wasn't good at people. This was probably her trying to express genuine gratitude in the only way she knew how. You don't have to give her anything expensive, Logan said carefully. Emma's easy to please. She'd be happy with a book or something. Noted. Claire's shoulders relaxed slightly. When is the party? We're not having a real party, just me and her. Maybe dinner at her favorite restaurant. Logan felt embarrassed admitting it. I can't really afford... What if I took you both to dinner? Claire interrupted. Somewhere nice, my treat. Call it a thank you for all the extra work you've been doing on the task force. Logan stared at her. You want to come to my daughter's birthday dinner. If you're comfortable with that. If not, I understand. Claire looked almost uncertain now. I know it's unusual, but I don't have many opportunities to do normal things. And Emma seemed to enjoy my company at the beach. I thought she might like... She stopped. Never mind, it's inappropriate. Forget I suggested it. No, it's not that. Logan scrambled to recover. I just wasn't expecting it. But yeah, Emma would love that. She still talks about you sometimes. Asks if I've seen you at work. Mom. Something flickered across Claire's face. Surprise, maybe? Or pleasure. Then it settled. Let me know the date, and I'll make reservations somewhere appropriate for a 6-year-old's birthday. Claire, you really don't have to... I want to. Her voice was firm, final. Let me do this, Hayes. Logan nodded slowly. Okay, thank you. Stop thanking me. But her expression had softened slightly. Now go. I'm sure you have actual work to do. Logan left feeling like his entire understanding of Claire Bennett had shifted again. She wasn't just his intimidating CEO anymore. She was becoming something else, something he didn't have a name for yet. The next few weeks were chaotic. The task force work intensified as they moved from research to policy drafting. Claire pushed them hard, but she also kept her word about leaving at 6. Logan would see her pack up her leather bag precisely at 6 o'clock and walk out, even if people were still in meetings. It sent a message. If the CEO could leave on time, anyone could. The company noticed. People started testing the boundaries, leaving a little earlier, working from home more often. And when no one got punished for it, the culture began shifting, slowly, gradually, but noticeably. Meanwhile, Emma's birthday approached. Logan told her Claire was taking them to dinner, and Emma practically vibrated with excitement. Really? Claire's coming? The pretty lady from the beach? Yes, baby. She wanted to celebrate with us. That's so cool. Can I wear my princess dress? Absolutely. The night of the dinner, Logan spent way too long trying to figure out what to wear. It was just dinner, a birthday dinner for a 6-year-old. But it was also dinner with his CEO at some expensive restaurant she was paying for. He settled on dark jeans and a button-down, hoping he'd hit the right balance between casual and respectful. Emma wore her purple princess dress and insisted on a sparkly headband. She looked adorable, and Logan took about 20 pictures before they left the apartment. Claire had made reservations at an upscale Italian place downtown that had somehow managed to be both elegant and kid-friendly. When Logan and Emma walked in, Claire was already there, sitting at a corner table. She wore dark pants and a silk blouse, her hair down and loose around her shoulders. She looked different outside the office, softer, more approachable. Emma ran over immediately. Claire, you came! Claire stood up, and for a second she looked genuinely uncertain about how to greet a 6-year-old at a birthday dinner. Then Emma hugged her legs, and Claire's expression did something complicated. Happy birthday, Emma. Claire's voice was quiet. She pulled a wrapped package from the chair beside her. I brought you something. Emma's eyes went huge. Really? Can I open it now? That's up to your dad, bum. Logan nodded, his throat tight. Emma tore into the wrapping paper with the efficiency of a kid who knew exactly what she was doing. Inside was a hardcover book, beautifully illustrated, about dragons who protected kingdoms and formed alliances with brave children. Dragons! Emma clutched the book to her chest. It's perfect, thank you. You're welcome. Claire's expression was carefully controlled, but her eyes had gone warm. I remembered you liked dragons. They sat down and ordered food. Emma chattered through the entire meal, telling Claire about school and her friends and the spelling test she'd aced. Claire listened with what seemed like genuine interest, asking questions and responding thoughtfully instead of just humoring a kid. Logan watched them interact and felt something shift in his chest. Claire was trying so hard, trying to be present, trying to connect with Emma in a way that clearly didn't come naturally, but mattered enough to attempt anyway. Daddy says you work with him, Emma said between bites of pasta. Are you friends? Claire glanced at Logan. We're colleagues. We work on an important project together. But do you like each other, Matt? Leave it to a 6-year-old to ask the question no adult would dare voice. I respect your father very much, Claire said carefully. He's very good at his job. That's not what I asked. Emma tilted her head. Do you like him? Claire's composure slipped for just a second. Yes, I like him. Logan's face heated. Em, that's enough. Eat your dinner. Emma grinned like she'd won something, then went back to her pasta. The rest of the meal passed in easier conversation. They ordered dessert, a massive chocolate cake with candles. The restaurant staff sang happy birthday, and Emma blew out the candles with determination, making a wish she refused to reveal. When they finally left, Emma was half asleep and sugar crashed. Logan carried her to the car while Claire walked beside them. Thank you for this, Logan said quietly. She had a great time. Would you guys share why? He spoke, So did I. Claire stopped next to his car. I can't remember the last time I did something like this. Something just nice. No business angle. No networking. She looked at Emma, asleep against Logan's shoulder. She's a special kid, Hayes. You're doing a good job with her. The compliment hit Logan harder than it should have. I'm trying. It shows. Claire reached out like she might touch Emma's hair, then pulled back. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. They stood there in the parking lot for a long moment, the silence comfortable in a way Logan hadn't expected. Finally, Claire stepped back. I should go. See you at the office Monday. See you Monday. Claire walked toward her car, a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than Logan made in a year. She glanced back once before getting in, and Logan caught something in her expression that looked almost like longing. Then she was gone, and Logan was left standing in the parking lot with his sleeping daughter and a feeling he couldn't quite name. That night, after tucking Emma into bed with her new dragon book on the nightstand, Logan's phone buzzed. Thank you for letting me be part of tonight. It meant more than you probably realize. CB. Logan stared at the message for a long time before responding. Thank you for making her birthday special. She'll remember this. The reply came quickly. I will too. Logan set the phone down and sat on his couch in the dark apartment. Something had changed tonight. Some line had been crossed, though he wasn't sure exactly when or how. Claire wasn't just his boss anymore. She wasn't just the person leading the policy reform project. She was becoming someone who mattered, someone who showed up, someone who tried. And that was terrifying, because Logan couldn't afford to care about Claire Bennett beyond a professional capacity. Couldn't afford to read into text messages or dinner invitations, or the way she looked at Emma like she'd never seen anything quite so perfect. He had too much to lose. Emma had too much to lose. But the feeling was there anyway, small and persistent, growing in the spaces between work meetings and task force sessions and late-night text exchanges about nothing important. Claire was lonely. Logan was lonely. And they'd somehow stumbled into each other's lives in a way that felt both accidental and inevitable. Logan knew he should be careful, should keep his distance, should remember that mixing personal feelings with professional relationships was a disaster waiting to happen. But when his phone buzzed again with a simple, "Good night, Hayes," Logan smiled in his dark apartment and typed back, "Good night, Claire," without thinking twice. The careful distance was already gone. He just hadn't admitted it yet. The weeks after Emma's birthday blurred together in a way that felt both ordinary and completely different from anything Logan had experienced before. Work continued. The task force progressed through policy drafts and executive presentations. Emma went to school and came home and needed help with homework. Everything was normal except for the fact that Claire Bennett had somehow become part of their lives in small, unexpected ways. She started joining their lunch breaks sometimes, showing up in the employee cafeteria with her tray and sitting down like it was the most natural thing in the world. The first time it happened, the entire room went silent. Claire Bennett didn't eat in the cafeteria. She had meals delivered to her office or went to business lunches at expensive restaurants. But there she was, eating mediocre pasta and asking Logan about Emma's progress with the Dragon Book. Marcus nearly choked on his sandwich. "Is that actually happening right now?" he whispered after Claire left. "Apparently. Bennett doesn't do lunch with random employees. What's going on? We work together on the task force. That's all." Marcus gave him a look that said he absolutely didn't believe that, but Logan ignored it. Because the truth was more complicated than he wanted to admit, even to himself. Claire had also started texting him about non-work things, random observations, articles she thought he'd find interesting. Once, a photo of a ridiculous-looking dog she'd seen on her morning run with the caption, "Thought Emma would appreciate this." Logan had shown Emma, who'd laughed so hard she got hiccups. It felt like friendship, except Logan had never had a friend who was also his CEO and who looked at him sometimes during meetings in a way that made his chest tight. The task force presented their preliminary policy recommendations to the executive team in early October. Logan stood in front of a room full of vice presidents and senior partners and explained why the company needed to fundamentally change how it treated employees with families. His voice stayed steady even though his hands were shaking. Claire sat at the head of the table, her expression unreadable, letting Logan make the case without interfering. When he finished, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then one of the older partners spoke up. These policies would cost the company millions, reduced productivity, increased operational complexity. For what? To coddle employees who can't handle the demands of the job? Logan's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Claire's voice cut through the room like ice. To retain talented people who are currently leaving for competitors with better work-life balance. To avoid the much higher costs of constant turnover and training. To build a company culture that doesn't destroy the people who make us successful. She leaned forward. And because it's the right thing to do. My father built this company on the backs of people who sacrificed everything. I watched what that cost him, what it cost families. I'm not continuing that legacy. The partner opened his mouth to argue, but something in Claire's expression made him close it again. "We're implementing these policies," Claire said flatly. "The only question is timeline and scope." Hayes continued with the presentation. Logan did, his heart pounding. Claire had just backed him completely in front of the entire executive team. Had shut down opposition without hesitation. Had made it clear this wasn't up for debate. The meeting ended with grudging approval to move forward. As people filed out, Claire caught Logan's arm. "My office. 10 minutes. Logan's stomach dropped. Had he overstepped somehow? Said something wrong in the presentation? He made his way to the executive floor exactly 10 minutes later, his mind racing through everything he'd said, looking for the mistake. Claire's assistant waved him through. Logan knocked and entered to find Claire standing at her window, looking out over the city. "Close the door." He did. The silence stretched out uncomfortably. Finally, Claire turned around. Her expression was different from the controlled mask she'd worn in the meeting. Something raw showed through. "Thank you," she said quietly. Logan blinked. "For what?" "For making me remember why this matters. I've been running this company for 3 years, and somewhere along the way, I forgot the point of all of it. I got caught up in profit margins and growth targets, and proving I could be as ruthless as my father." She looked tired suddenly. "Watching you present today, hearing you talk about what these policies could mean for actual human beings, it reminded me that business doesn't have to be brutal to be successful." Logan didn't know what to say. This was the most vulnerable he'd ever seen Claire. "You would have figured it out eventually," he managed. "Maybe, but I'm glad I didn't have to." Claire walked to her desk and sat on the edge of it, a casual posture he'd never seen from her before. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Okay." "Do you ever resent Emma for limiting your career options?" The question was so unexpected, Logan actually laughed. "Never, not once. She's the only thing in my life I know I got right. Even when it's hard? When you're exhausted and overwhelmed and watching other people advance while you stay stuck? Even then." Logan studied her. "Why are you asking?" "No." Claire looked down at her hands. I spent my entire childhood watching my father choose this company over time with me, over his health, over everything. He loved me, I know he did, but the work always came first, and I understood, or thought I did. I built my whole identity around being like him. Strong, focused, willing to sacrifice anything for success. She paused. But then I met Emma, and I watched how you are with her, how you choose her every single time without hesitation or resentment, and I realized I have no idea what that kind of love actually looks like. Logan's throat felt tight. Claire, I'm not looking for pity. I'm just trying to understand how you do it, how you make it look so easy. It's not easy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Logan moved closer without thinking about it. But Emma didn't ask to be born. She didn't ask for her mother to leave or for me to be barely holding it together most days. She just needs someone to love her completely, to show up, to be there even when it's hard. That's not sacrifice, Claire. That's just being her father. But Claire looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You're a better person than most people in this building, including me. That's not true. It is. And I think that's why I keep... She stopped herself. Never mind. Why you keep what? Claire shook her head. Nothing. Forget I said anything. She stood up, her professional mask sliding back into place. The executive team approved the policies. We'll start implementation next quarter. You should be proud of what you've accomplished. The subject change was obvious, but Logan let it go. Thank you for backing me up in there. I wasn't backing you up. I was agreeing with you. There's a difference. Claire's voice was back to business. Now go. I'm sure you have work to do. Logan nodded and left. But the conversation stayed with him for the rest of the day. Claire had been about to say something important before she'd stopped herself. Something that started with, "That's why I keep," and ended with her shutting down completely. That night, Emma asked about Claire over dinner. Is Claire coming over again soon? I don't know, baby. She's very busy. But she's our friend now, right? Friends visit each other. Logan didn't know how to explain that adults didn't really have friendships the way kids did, that professional boundaries existed, that his boss coming to Emma's birthday dinner was already unusual enough without inviting her over for casual visits. She's my boss, Em. It's complicated. Why? Because grown-up relationships are weird. Emma considered this. I think she's lonely. She should come over more. We could show her our movie collection. Logan smiled despite himself. Our movie collection was about 8 DVDs Emma had gotten from the library's donation bin and watched so many times she could recite them. Maybe sometime. But Emma's observation stuck with him. Claire was lonely. She'd basically admitted it that day in her office. And Logan kept thinking about the way she'd looked when she said she didn't know what unconditional love looked like. He texted her before he could overthink it. Emma says you should come visit sometime, watch movies, be a friend instead of just a colleague. No pressure, but the invitation's there. He hit send and immediately regretted it. Too casual, too presumptuous. Claire was going to think he'd lost his mind. The response came 15 minutes later. What kind of movies? Logan stared at his phone. Was she actually considering it? Mostly animated, lots of dragons, very age-appropriate and probably boring for adults. I've never watched an animated movie. That stopped Logan cold. Never? How did someone reach 30 without ever watching a single animated movie? Then you're way overdue. Saturday afternoon if you're free. No work talk allowed. A long pause. Logan's heart hammered. Then, okay, what should I bring? Logan smiled. Just yourself. We've got everything else covered. Saturday arrived faster than Logan expected. He spent the morning cleaning the apartment, which mostly meant shoving clutter into closets and hoping Claire wouldn't judge him too harshly for the mismatched furniture and scuffed floors. Emma helped by arranging her stuffed animals in what she called a proper welcome committee. Claire showed up at 2 wearing jeans and a sweater, her hair in a casual ponytail. Logan had never seen her look so normal, so approachable. Hi! Emma launched herself at Claire immediately. You came! I said I would! Claire looked around the apartment and Logan braced himself for judgment, but she just smiled slightly. This is nice. It feels like a home. It's small and kind of falling apart, but it's ours, Logan said. That's what makes it nice. They settled on the couch, Emma between them, and started the first movie. It was one of Emma's favorites about a girl who discovered magic and had to save her village. Logan had seen it probably 50 times. But watching Claire watch it was different. She was completely absorbed, her expression shifting with the story in a way that made her seem younger, more vulnerable. When the movie ended, Emma immediately wanted to start another one. Claire agreed without hesitation. And Logan made popcorn while Emma narrated her entire interpretation of the first movie's themes to Claire, who listened like it was the most important thing she'd ever heard. The second movie was about a lost prince and a dragon who became unlikely friends. Halfway through, Emma fell asleep between them, her head on Claire's shoulder. Claire froze. "Is this okay?" she whispered. "She wouldn't do it if she didn't want to," Logan whispered back. Claire carefully adjusted so Emma was more comfortable, then went back to watching the movie. Logan watched her instead. The way she'd gone completely still when Emma had leaned against her. The way her hand had moved like she wanted to touch Emma's hair, but didn't quite dare. The way her entire expression had softened into something almost heartbreaking. The movie ended. Emma was still asleep. Logan carefully picked her up. "I'm going to put her in her bed. I'll be right back." He carried Emma to her room and tucked her in, pulling the covers up and making sure her stuffed rabbit was within reach. When he came back to the living room, Claire was standing at the bookshelf, looking at the collection of photos Logan had framed there. Most of them were Emma at various ages. A few were from the beach trip. One showed Emma and Claire building the sandcastle together, taken by another beachgoer who'd offered. "I didn't know you had this," Claire said quietly, touching the frame. "Emma wanted to remember that day. She talks about you a lot." "She does?" "Yeah. She thinks you're cool and pretty and smart." Direct quote. Claire smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "She's easy to love. You both are." The words hung in the air between them. Logan's heart did something complicated in his chest. "Claire, I should go." She turned from the photos abruptly. "Thank you for today. I had a really good time." "You don't have to leave. We could order dinner, watch another movie." "I do have to leave." Claire's voice had gone tight. "Because if I stay, I'm going to say something I shouldn't, and that wouldn't be fair to either of us." Logan moved closer. "What if I want you to say it?" Claire looked at him, and the expression on her face was raw and scared and wanting all at once. "You don't know what you're asking." "Then tell me." "I can't." Claire grabbed her purse. "I'm your boss, Hayes. This is already inappropriate. I shouldn't have come here. Shouldn't have gotten involved with you and Emma. It was selfish and stupid, and I'm sorry." "Don't apologize for wanting to be part of something real." Logan's voice came out rougher than he intended. "Don't apologize for being lonely." "I'm not lonely. I'm fine." "You're lying." Claire's composure cracked. "Of course I'm lying. I'm always lying because the truth is I'm miserable and I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to have relationships that aren't transactional. I don't know how to let people in without feeling like I'm giving them ammunition to hurt me. And then you and Emma walked into my life and suddenly I want things I convinced myself I didn't need. Things I have no business wanting." "Like what?" Logan asked quietly. "Like this. Like family dinners and movie afternoons and being part of something that matters beyond profit margins and business strategy. Like watching Emma sleep on my shoulder and feeling like maybe I could be good at something other than work." Claire's voice broke slightly. "Like you." The confession hung between them. Logan couldn't breathe. "I'm falling in love with you," Claire said, the words coming out like they were being dragged from somewhere deep and painful. "Both of you. And I don't know what to do with that because I'm terrified I'll ruin it. That I'll be too damaged or too controlling or too much like my father and I'll destroy the best thing that's happened to me in years." Logan closed the distance between them in 2 steps and kissed her. It wasn't smooth or perfect. Claire made a surprised sound against his mouth, and for a second she didn't respond. Then her hands came up to his face, and she kissed him back with an intensity that made Logan's knees weak. When they finally broke apart, Claire was breathing hard, her eyes wide. "That was unprofessional," Logan offered. "I was going to say inevitable." Claire touched her lips like she couldn't quite believe what had just happened. "But also very unprofessional." "What? You started it by admitting you were falling in love with me." "That was verbal. Kissing is different." "You kissed me back." "I know." Claire looked simultaneously terrified and relieved. "I've wanted to do that for weeks." "So have I." They stood there staring at each other, the weight of what had just happened settling over them. "This is complicated," Claire said finally. "I know, Shat. I'm your boss. There are rules about relationships between supervisors and subordinates, HR policies, potential lawsuits, professional consequences. I know. And Emma, if this doesn't work out, if I hurt her, then we'll be careful." Logan took her hands. "We'll figure it out, together. But don't walk away because you're scared, Claire. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do it to us." Claire's eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. "I don't know how to do this. How to be someone's partner. Someone's—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Someone's what?" "Someone's mother figure. Emma already sees me that way, doesn't she? The way she looks at me, the way she wants me around. I can't be what she needs. I don't know how." Logan squeezed her hands. "You're already doing it. You show up. You try. You care about her happiness. That's all she needs. That's all any of us need." Claire pulled one hand free to wipe at her eyes. "I'm a mess." "So am I. We'll be a mess together." She laughed, watery and genuine. "That's not romantic. I'm not romantic. I'm exhausted and broke and raising a kid alone. What I can offer you is real, messy and complicated and real. If that's not enough—" Claire kissed him again, softer this time. When she pulled back, she was almost smiling. "It's enough. You're enough. This is enough." They stood in Logan's tiny living room, holding on to each other like they were both afraid of letting go, and something fundamental shifted in the air. This was happening. They were doing this. All the complications and professional risks and potential disasters didn't matter because Claire Bennett was looking at Logan like he was the answer to a question she'd been asking her entire life. "Stay for dinners," Logan said. "Okay, Pete. And after, we need to talk about how we're going to handle this at work. The disclosure process. Making sure we're not violating any company policies." Claire nodded. "Monday morning? I'll talk to HR. We'll do this the right way." "The right way that doesn't get either of us fired? That would be ideal." Claire's professional mask was trying to reassert itself, but failing. She just looked happy. Genuinely happy in a way Logan had never seen before. They ordered pizza and ate it at Logan's tiny kitchen table. Emma woke up halfway through dinner, wandered out in her pajamas, and climbed into Claire's lap without asking permission. Claire's arms came around her automatically, and Logan watched his daughter snuggle against the woman who'd been a terrifying stranger 4 months ago. "Are you staying for a while?" Emma asked sleepily. Claire looked at Logan over Emma's head, her expression vulnerable and hopeful and scared all at once. "Yeah," Logan said, "she's staying." Emma smiled against Claire's shoulder and closed her eyes again, completely content. And Logan knew in that moment that everything was about to change. Not in some dramatic, catastrophic way, but in small, significant ways that would reshape their entire lives. Claire would have to learn how to be part of a family. Logan would have to learn how to trust someone with his heart again. Emma would have to adjust to having someone new in their small, fragile world. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worth having ever was. But watching Claire hold his daughter with such careful tenderness, watching the woman who'd built walls around herself for 30 years finally let them crumble, Logan thought maybe they'd figure it out. Maybe broken people could help each other heal. Maybe lonely people could build something beautiful together. Maybe love didn't have to be perfect to be exactly what they all needed. Later that night, after Emma had gone back to bed, and Claire had reluctantly said she should leave, they stood at the door and Logan pulled her close one more time. "This is real," he said. "You believe that, right?" Claire nodded against his chest. "I'm trying to." "Try hard. Because I meant what I said earlier, about being a mess together, about figuring it out. I'm all in, Claire. Emma's all in. The question is whether you're ready to be all in too." Claire pulled back to look at him. Her eyes were fierce and determined and still a little scared. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "But yes, I'm all in, whatever that means, however complicated it gets. I want this. I want you. I want the family I never thought I could have." Logan kissed her forehead. "Then that's all that matters." She left a few minutes later, and Logan watched from the window as her car pulled away into the night. His phone buzzed almost immediately. "I'm already missing you. Is that normal?" Logan smiled in his empty apartment and typed back, Very normal. Get used to it. I think I could get used to a lot of things. Good night, Logan. Good night, Claire. Logan stood there for a long time after the message came through, his heart full in a way it hadn't been since before his divorce. Since before life had taught him that hoping for good things was usually just setting himself up for disappointment. But Claire was different. This was different. They'd both been through enough to understand what they were risking, what they stood to lose if this went wrong. And they were choosing it anyway, choosing each other, choosing to try. That had to mean something. From Emma's room came a soft sound, and Logan went to check on her. She was sprawled across her bed, the dragon book Claire had given her tucked under one arm. Her face was peaceful and happy, and when Logan adjusted her blankets, she mumbled something that sounded like "Love, Claire." Logan's throat went tight. His daughter was already attached, already forming bonds that would hurt if they broke. But looking at Emma's peaceful face, Logan couldn't bring himself to regret any of it. This was worth the risk. She was worth the risk. They were worth the risk. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Monday morning felt different. Logan dropped Emma at school like always, drove to work like always, took the elevator up to his floor like always. But nothing was the same because he was walking into the office as someone in a relationship with Claire Bennett, and the entire world was about to find out. Claire had texted him at 6 that morning. Meeting with HR at 8. Don't worry. Logan was worrying anyway. He sat at his desk pretending to work while his mind spun through every possible disaster scenario. Maybe HR would require one of them to transfer departments. Maybe they'd decide the relationship was inappropriate, regardless of disclosure. Maybe someone would accuse Claire of favoritism, or Logan of sleeping his way into opportunities. His phone buzzed at 8:45. Done. Come to my office. Logan's stomach dropped. He made his way to the executive floor on legs that felt unsteady, nodded at Claire's assistant, and knocked on the door. Come in. Claire was sitting behind her desk looking composed and professional, but Logan caught the tension around her eyes. How bad is it? He asked, closing the door. Not bad. Complicated, but manageable. Claire gestured to the chair across from her. HR requires us to sign relationship disclosure forms. You'll be moved off any projects where I have direct supervisory authority over your performance reviews or compensation decisions. The task force can continue since it's a temporary assignment with multiple stakeholders, but we need to be transparent about the relationship with the other members. Logan nodded slowly. That's it? That's the official part. The unofficial part is that people will talk. They'll make assumptions about favoritism. They'll question whether our relationship started before or after certain professional decisions were made. Claire's voice was steady, but her hands were clasped tightly on the desk. Voice was steady, but I need you to be prepared for that, for people to look at you differently, to wonder if you earned your opportunities or if I gave them to you because of personal feelings. I did earn them. I know that, but not everyone will believe it. Claire finally met his eyes. I'm asking you if you're ready to deal with that. Because once we make this official, there's no taking it back. Your professional reputation will be linked to our personal relationship, whether you like it or not. Logan thought about it, really thought about it. The gossip would be brutal. People like Marcus would probably be supportive, but others would absolutely assume the worst. Logan's career advancement would forever have an asterisk next to it in some people's minds. But then he thought about Saturday, about Claire holding Emma while they ate pizza, about the way she'd looked at him when she admitted she was falling in love, about the life they could build together if they were brave enough to try. I'm ready, he said. Are you? Something in Claire's expression eased. I told my executive team this morning, before HR. I wanted them to hear it from me directly. She paused. It didn't go well. What happened? Richard Carlson suggested I was making a mistake that would undermine my authority. Susan Park questioned whether I could remain objective about company policy if I was personally involved with an employee who'd benefit from those policies. And James Mitchell actually had the nerve to imply that I was too emotionally compromised to make sound business decisions anymore. Logan's jaw tightened. What did you say? I told them that my personal life was none of their business as long as I followed proper disclosure procedures. That questioning my judgment based on having a relationship was sexist nonsense. They'd never apply to a male CEO. And that if they had concerns about my leadership, They were welcome to take it up with the board of directors. Claire's voice was sharp. Then I reminded them that I still control 51% of company shares, and they work for me, not the other way around. Despite everything, Logan smiled. That must have been satisfying. It was terrifying, actually. I've never brought my personal life into the office before. Never had to defend my choices to people who think they have a right to judge them. Claire stood up and walked to the window. But I meant what I said Saturday. I'm all in, even if it costs me professionally. It won't cost you anything. You're the best CEO this company has ever had. You're biased. Doesn't make it less true. Claire turned back to him, and the vulnerability in her expression made Logan's chest ache. I'm scared, Logan. I'm scared I'm going to mess this up. That I'll be too controlling or too emotionally distant, or that I'll hurt Emma by not being what she needs. I've spent 30 years building walls, and now I'm supposed to just tear them down and hope I don't fall apart in the process. Logan stood and crossed to her. You're not going to fall apart, and you're already what Emma needs. What we both need. Someone who shows up. Someone who tries even when it's hard. What if trying isn't enough? Then we figure it out together. That's what relationships are. Two broken people helping each other be less broken. Claire leaned into him, and Logan wrapped his arms around her. They stood like that for a long moment, the city sprawling below them through the window, the weight of what they were attempting settling over them both. The task force meeting is this afternoon, Claire said finally, her voice muffled against his shoulder. We should tell them first, before the gossip spreads. Okay? And I think we should be honest about the timeline. That we started developing feelings during the project, but didn't act on them until after proper procedures were in place. That's basically the truth. It is the truth. Claire pulled back to look at him. I need you to know I never gave you opportunities because of personal feelings. You earned everything. The task force position, the salary increase, all of it. You were the best person for the job. I know. I need you to keep knowing that, even when people imply otherwise. Logan cupped her face. I will. I promise. They kissed, soft and brief, a stolen moment of intimacy in the middle of a workday. Then Claire stepped back and smoothed down her suit jacket, her professional mask sliding back into place. You should get back to your desk before people start wondering where you are. I'll see you at the meeting. Logan nodded and left, his mind already racing through what he'd say to the task force, how he'd explain this to Marcus, how he'd handle the inevitable questions and assumptions and judgment. The morning crawled by. Logan tried to focus on work, but his mind kept wandering. At 11, Marcus appeared at his cubicle looking concerned. Rumor mill says Bennett called an emergency HR meeting this morning. Any idea what that's about? Logan took a breath. Yeah, actually, I do. Marcus's eyes narrowed. What did you do? I started dating Claire. Marcus's mouth fell open. Then he grabbed Logan's arm and physically dragged him into an empty conference room, closing the door behind them. What did you just say? I'm in a relationship with Claire Bennett. We disclosed it to HR this morning. It's all official and above board. Marcus stared at him like he'd grown a second head. When did this happen? We've had feelings for a while. Since the beach, really, but we only acted on them this weekend. The beach. The beach from your trip in August. The trip where you randomly ran into Bennett and now suddenly you're dating. Marcus ran his hands through his hair. Logan, what the hell, man? She's your boss. This is insane. I know it's complicated. Complicated? This is career suicide. Do you have any idea what people are going to say? How this looks? I know exactly how it looks. I'm doing it anyway. Marcus sat down heavily in one of the conference room chairs. You really care about her. I love her. Saying it out loud felt both terrifying and right. And she loves me, and Emma. We're building something real, something that matters more than office politics or what people think. Emma. Marcus's expression shifted. Your 6-year-old daughter is involved in this? She adores Claire, has since the beach. They have movie days and dinner together, and Claire bought her a book about dragons for her birthday. This isn't just me making a reckless decision. This is about my family. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, then he sighed. You're serious about this? Completely. Then I'm happy for you, man. Genuinely. Even if I think you're both crazy. Marcus stood up and clapped Logan on the shoulder. But be prepared. The gossip is going to be brutal. People are going to assume the worst. Let them. The task force meeting that afternoon was tense from the start. Sarah, Marcus from the other department, and Jennifer were already seated when Logan arrived. Claire came in last, carrying her portfolio and wearing an expression that gave nothing away. Before we start, Claire said, sitting down, Logan and I need to disclose something. We've entered into a personal relationship. HR has been notified and proper procedures have been followed. This doesn't change the task force or the work we're doing, but we wanted you all to hear it directly from us rather than through office gossip. The silence was deafening. Sarah spoke first. How long has this been going on? We acknowledged our feelings this past weekend, Claire said, but we've been developing a connection over the course of this project. We want to be transparent about that. Jennifer looked between them. And you're sure this is appropriate, given the power dynamics? We've taken every precaution to ensure there's no conflict of interest, Logan said. I'm being moved off any projects where Claire has direct supervisory authority. Our relationship is documented with HR. Everything is above board. Marcus from the task force leaned back in his chair. People are going to talk. Let them. Claire's voice was firm. What matters is that we're doing the right thing legally and ethically. My personal life doesn't affect my ability to lead this company or this project. If anyone has concerns about that, I'm happy to address them directly. The meeting continued, awkward but functional. They reviewed the final policy recommendations, discussed implementation timelines, planned the company-wide rollout. The work continued despite the personal revelations because the work mattered. Afterward, Sarah pulled Logan aside in the hallway. I have a daughter, she said quietly. She's 14 now, but I remember what it was like when she was Emma's age. The guilt of never being there enough. The exhaustion of trying to do everything alone. She paused. If Claire makes you happy, if she's good to your daughter, then I'm glad you found each other. Don't let the gossip make you question that. Logan felt his throat tighten. Thank you. Just don't screw up these policies. A lot of us are counting on them. I won't. The gossip started immediately. By end of day Tuesday, everyone in the office knew. Logan could feel the stares and whispers following him. People who used to chat casually at his desk now avoided eye contact. He heard his name mentioned in hushed conversations that stopped the moment he appeared. It was exactly as bad as he'd expected, maybe worse. Wednesday afternoon, Logan was called into a meeting with his direct supervisor, a senior partner named David Chen, who'd always been fair but strict. Hayes, sit down. David gestured to a chair, his expression neutral. I need to ask you some questions about your recent promotion to the policy task force. Logan's stomach sank, but he kept his voice steady. Okay. You were selected for that assignment in September. Is that correct? Yes. And you began a personal relationship with CEO Bennett when? This past weekend, after proper disclosure to HR. But you had feelings before that. Logan chose his words carefully. I developed feelings over time through working together, but we didn't act on them inappropriately. We waited until we could handle it through proper channels. David leaned back in his chair, studying Logan. I'm going to be blunt. People are questioning whether you earned your position on the task force or whether Bennett gave it to you because of personal interest. I earned it. My performance reviews speak for themselves. My work on the task force has been solid. Anyone who looks at the actual data instead of making assumptions will see that. I've looked at the data. Your work is excellent, but perception matters in a professional environment. David's expression softened slightly. I'm not trying to attack you, Hayes. I'm trying to prepare you for what's coming. The whispers, the assumptions, the way people will discount your accomplishments. You need to be twice as good now just to be seen as adequate. I understand. Do you? Because this isn't going to get easier. Every promotion, every success, every time Bennett makes a decision that benefits you even indirectly, people will question it. You've tied your professional reputation to this relationship. That's a heavy burden to carry. Logan met his eyes. Claire is worth it. My family is worth it. I'll deal with the rest, and David nodded slowly. Then I respect that. For what it's worth, I think you're both making this more difficult than it needs to be. But I also think you're handling it with integrity. Keep doing that." The conversation stuck with Logan through the rest of the week. He knew David was right. This was going to be his reality now. Every achievement questioned, every opportunity scrutinized. His career forever linked to his relationship with Claire in ways that would probably hurt him professionally. But when Friday evening came and Claire showed up at his apartment for dinner, when Emma ran to greet her with that unself-conscious joy, when they sat around his tiny kitchen table eating takeout and laughing at Emma's stories about school, Logan knew he'd made the right choice. This was real. This mattered. Everything else was just noise. The policy rollout happened in November. Company-wide announcement. New flexibility options. Protected end times. Evaluation criteria focused on output rather than hours worked. The response was mixed. Parents and employees with family obligations were thrilled. Some of the old guard grumbled about declining standards and softness. But slowly, gradually, the culture began to shift. People started leaving at 5 without guilt, started working from home without apology, started having lives outside the office. And Claire led by example. She left at 6 most days, worked from home twice a week, took actual vacation time. She was still demanding, still held people to high standards, but those standards were about quality work, not performative suffering. The company didn't fall apart. In fact, employee retention improved, productivity increased, turnover decreased. The policies Claire and Logan had fought for were actually working. But the gossip about their relationship never fully stopped. People still whispered, still made assumptions. Logan overheard someone at the coffee machine speculating about whether Claire had given him preferential treatment during task force assignments. Another time, a junior analyst implied in a meeting that Logan's insights were probably just reflecting Claire's private opinions. It hurt. Every time. But Logan kept working, kept proving himself, kept showing up and doing excellent work until slowly, grudgingly, most people had to acknowledge that he'd earned his place. Emma adjusted to having Claire in their lives with the easy acceptance of childhood. Claire came over twice a week for dinner, joined them for Saturday morning breakfasts, helped with homework even though she kept insisting she didn't know anything about second-grade math. Emma started calling her Aunt Claire without anyone suggesting it, and Claire's eyes had gotten suspiciously bright the first time she heard it. They were building something, not perfect, not always smooth, but real and honest and worth fighting for. The breaking point came in January. Emma came home from school crying, her face red and blotchy. Logan's heart stopped. "Baby, what happened? Are you hurt?" Emma shook her head and threw herself into his arms, sobbing. Logan held her, his mind racing through possibilities. Bullying, accident, something awful at school. Finally, Emma pulled back enough to speak. "Jake said I don't have a real family because I don't have a mom. He said Aunt Claire doesn't count because she's not really my mom, and she's probably just being nice because she feels sorry for us." Logan's jaw clenched so hard it ached. That's not true. Not any of it. But I don't have a mom, and Claire isn't my mom, so maybe Jake's right." Emma's voice broke. "Maybe we're not a real family." Logan pulled her close again, his heart breaking. "Listen to me. Family isn't about biology. It's about who shows up, who loves you, who chooses to be there every single day." He pulled back to look at her. "Claire chooses us every day. She chooses to be here. That makes her family. But she's not my mom." "No. Your mom made a choice to leave. That wasn't about you, baby. That was about her not being ready to be a parent. It was wrong, and it hurt us. But it doesn't define our family." Logan brushed Emma's tears away. "Do you love Claire?" Emma nodded. "Does she love you?" Another nod. "Then that's what matters. Not what some kid at school says. Not what anyone else thinks. Just what's true between us." Emma sniffled. "Can I call her? I want to talk to her." Logan handed Emma his phone and watched her dial Claire's number with shaking fingers. It rang twice before Claire answered. "Logan, is everything okay?" "It's Emma." Emma's voice was small. "I had a bad day." "What happened, sweetheart?" Emma explained through tears about Jake's comment. Logan could hear Claire's voice on the other end, gentle and firm, though he couldn't make out the words. Emma listened, nodding, her tears gradually slowing. Finally, Emma said, "Okay. Thank you, Aunt Claire. I love you." A pause. Then Claire's voice, thick with emotion that even Logan could hear. I love you too, Emma. So much. Emma handed the phone back to Logan, looking calmer. Claire says family is about who you choose and who chooses you back. She said she chooses us every day, and that's never going to change. Logan's throat was tight. She's right. I know. Emma wiped her eyes. Can Claire come over tonight? I want to show her the story I wrote about dragons. I'll ask her. Emma went to wash her face while Logan called Claire back. She answered immediately. How is she? Better. You helped. Logan paused. She wants you to come over tonight. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Claire, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She's hurting. You're both hurting. I'm coming over. True to her word, Claire arrived 20 minutes later carrying Chinese takeout and a package wrapped in bright paper. Emma opened it to find a journal with dragons on the cover. For your stories, Claire explained, I thought you could write down all your dragon adventures and we could read them together. Emma hugged the journal to her chest. Thank you. They ate dinner mostly in silence, Emma still subdued from the emotional afternoon. Afterward, while Logan cleaned up, Claire and Emma sat on the couch, and Emma showed her the story she'd written about a dragon who protected a kingdom of people who didn't have traditional families. Logan listened from the kitchen and felt something in his chest crack open. This was what love looked like. Not grand gestures or perfect moments, just showing up when things were hard, being present through the pain. After Emma went to bed, Logan and Claire sat on the couch together, her head on his shoulder. That kid was wrong, Claire said quietly. About Emma not having a real family. You two are the most real family I've ever seen. We want you to be part of it, officially. Claire lifted her head to look at him. What do you mean? Logan hadn't planned this, hadn't prepared what to say, but the words came anyway. Move in with us. Not right away, but soon. Be part of our daily life, not just visits and dinners. Help me raise Emma. Build something permanent together. He took her hands. I know it's fast, I know it's scary, but I love you, Claire. And Emma loves you. And I don't want to keep pretending this is casual when it's the most important thing in my life. Claire's eyes were bright with tears. I don't know how to do this, how to be a partner, how to be a parent figure. I'm terrified I'll mess it up. You won't, and even if you do sometimes, we'll figure it out together. That's what families do. I've never had anyone choose me like this, want me for more than what I could do for them professionally. Claire's voice broke. My father loved me, but he was always working, always sacrificing. I spent my whole life feeling like I wasn't quite enough to make him stay home. And now you're asking me to be part of something where I am enough, where just being here is enough. Oof, Logan pulled her close. You're more than enough. You're everything. What are us? Because my guys. They sat like that for a long time, holding each other in the dark apartment. Finally, Claire spoke again. I have something for you. I was going to wait, but this feels like the right time. She pulled away and reached into her purse, pulling out a small box. Logan's heart stopped. Claire, it's not what you think. Not yet anyway. Open it. Inside was a small glass sculpture of a sandcastle, intricate and beautiful, no bigger than his palm. Logan stared at it. Where did you get this? I commissioned it from an artist in Miami. It's the castle Emma built that first day at the beach, the one we worked on together. Claire's voice was soft. Claire's. I wanted us to have something to remember where this started, the moment everything changed. Logan's eyes stung. It's perfect. The castle Emma built washed away with the tide, but what we're building now doesn't have to disappear. We can make it permanent. We can make it last. Claire took a shaky breath. So yes, I'll move in with you. I want to build something real with you and Emma, something that lasts. Logan kissed her, and this time it felt like a promise, like a beginning instead of just another moment stolen from complicated circumstances. When they finally pulled apart, Claire was smiling through tears. I've spent 30 years being alone, she said, being strong and independent and not needing anyone. But I'm tired of being alone, Logan. I'm ready to let someone in, to be part of something bigger than just work and success and proving I'm worthy. She touched his face. I'm ready to be home. Then welcome home. They stayed on the couch until almost midnight, planning logistics and talking about the future. Claire would give notice at her current place next month. They'd need to figure out sleeping arrangements in Logan's tiny apartment, or maybe start looking for somewhere bigger. Emma would need time to adjust to Claire being there full time. There were 1,000 details to work out. But the big question was settled. They were doing this, building a life together, choosing each other, and Emma, and whatever messy, imperfect family they could create. Over the next few months, things fell into place in ways that felt both surreal and exactly right. Claire moved in gradually, bringing pieces of her life into Logan's apartment until it became their apartment. Emma adjusted with remarkable ease, delighted to have Claire there every morning at breakfast and every night at bedtime. The office gossip gradually faded as people got used to seeing Logan and Claire together. Some people still made assumptions, still questioned Logan's achievements, but most had moved on to newer scandals and drama. The policy changes Claire had implemented became standard procedure. The company thrived. Employee satisfaction was the highest it had been in years. Claire had proven that you didn't have to destroy your workforce to be successful. And somewhere in all of that, Logan's tiny family of 2 became a family of 3. It wasn't always smooth. Claire still struggled with control issues sometimes, wanting to fix everything and manage everyone instead of just being present. Logan still had moments of insecurity about his career being forever tied to their relationship. Emma still had hard days about not having a traditional family structure. But they worked through it, together, honestly, with the kind of messy authenticity that came from people who'd all been broken before and were trying to be less broken together. One Saturday in May, almost a year after that first beach trip, they drove back to Florida. Same beach, same ocean. But everything else was different. Emma ran toward the water immediately, laughing. Logan and Claire followed more slowly, their hands linked. "I can't believe it's been a year," Claire said, staring at the beach. "Best year of my life, even with all the gossip and complications, especially with all that, because it means what we have is real enough to fight for." They found a spot on the sand and spread out their towel. Emma immediately started building a sand castle, and Claire sat down to help her without being asked. Logan watched them work together, Emma chattering about dragon architecture and Claire responding with the kind of serious attention she usually reserved for business strategy. This was what mattered, not the perfect careers or the impressive titles or the money. This. Connection. Love. Family. Logan thought about the man he'd been a year ago. Exhausted. Barely surviving. Convinced he was failing at everything that mattered. He'd brought Emma to this beach hoping to give her one good memory, and instead he'd found something he hadn't even known he was looking for. He'd found Claire, lonely and brilliant and terrified of letting anyone see the real her. And together they'd built something neither of them had believed possible. "Daddy, come help," Emma called. "Claire says we need a moat, but it has to be the right depth, or the water won't stay." Logan joined them, and they spent the afternoon building castles just like they had a year ago. Other families played around them. The sun blazed overhead, waves crashed and rolled, and when the tide started coming in, when their castle began to crumble and wash away, Emma didn't cry. She just smiled and said, "We can build another one tomorrow." Because that was the thing about sandcastles. They were temporary, fragile, destined to disappear with the tide. But the people who built them together, the memories they created, the love they shared while shaping something beautiful out of sand and water and hope, that lasted. That was permanent. Logan looked at Claire and Emma, at his family, and felt grateful for every embarrassing moment and awkward conversation and complicated choice that had led him here. He'd come to this beach a year ago, convinced his life was falling apart. Instead, he'd found everything he'd been missing. Sometimes the worst moments become doorways to the best things. Sometimes lonely people find each other at exactly the right time. Sometimes broken families can heal and grow and become something better than they ever were before. The castle disappeared into the ocean. Emma laughed and grabbed Claire's hand, pulling her toward the water. Claire looked back at Logan, her expression open and happy and completely unguarded. And Logan thought, this is what it means to be home. Not a place, not a house, but people who choose each other, who show up, who build beautiful things together knowing they might be temporary, but building them anyway, because the act of creation, the act of love, matters more than permanence. They played in the waves until sunset, then drove to the same cheap motel Logan had stayed at before. Except this time Claire had upgraded them to a suite with 2 bedrooms and a view of the ocean. Emma fell asleep between them on the big bed, exhausted and happy, sand still in her hair. Logan and Claire sat on the small balcony, looking out at the dark water. "Thank you," Logan said quietly. "For what?" "For sitting down at Emma's sandcastle that day, for being brave enough to try, for choosing us." Claire leaned against him. "Thank you for letting me, for seeing past the walls I'd built and wanting me anyway, for showing me what family actually means." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the ocean and the distant sounds of other families enjoying their vacations. Somewhere a child laughed. Music played softly from a nearby room. Life continued all around them, ordinary and beautiful. "I've been thinking," Claire said eventually, "about next steps, about making things official." Logan's heart jumped. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Emma asked me last week if I was going to be her mom forever, and I said yes without even thinking about it. But legally, I have no rights. If something happened to you, I couldn't make decisions for her, couldn't keep her with me." Claire's voice was steady, but Logan could hear the fear underneath. "I want to adopt her, officially. If that's something you'd be open to." Logan couldn't speak for a moment, his throat too tight. "You want to adopt Emma?" "I want to be her mother in every way that matters, including legally. I know it's a big ask." "Yes." Logan's voice was rough. "Yes, absolutely yes. Emma would be thrilled. I'm thrilled. Claire, you're already her mother in all the ways that matter. Making it legal just makes it official." Claire exhaled shakily. "I was terrified you'd say no, that I was overstepping. You could never overstep with Emma. She loves you. She needs you. We both do." Logan took her hand. "You're our family, Claire. Time to make it permanent." They kissed on the balcony overlooking the ocean, and Logan felt something settle in his chest that had been unsettled for years. This was right. This was exactly where they were all supposed to be. The next morning, Emma woke up bouncing with energy. They had breakfast at a diner, then went back to the beach for one more day of castle building. This time, they made it even bigger, with towers and walls and an elaborate moat system. "This is our best one yet," Emma announced proudly. "It is," Claire agreed. "But you know what makes it really special?" "What?" We built it together, all 3 of us, as a family." Emma beamed. "Can we take a picture?" Logan pulled out his phone and they posed in front of the castle, Emma between her 2 parents, all of them sandy and sunburned and completely happy. He snapped the photo and knew immediately it would be the one they'd look back on years from now, the moment when everything became real. When it was time to leave, Emma said goodbye to the castle with less sadness than before. "It's okay if it washes away," she told Claire, "because we can always build another one. And even if we can't come back to this beach, we can build castles anywhere." "That's very wise," Claire said seriously. "I know. Daddy says I get it from him." Logan laughed. "I definitely said that." They drove home with Emma asleep in the back seat and Logan's hand linked with Claire's over the center console. The future stretched ahead of them, uncertain and full of possibilities and probably messy in all the normal ways families were messy. But they'd figure it out together. Because that's what you did when you loved someone, when you chose them and they chose you back. You built something beautiful, knowing it might be fragile, knowing the tide would eventually come and change everything. But you built it anyway. You showed up, you tried. You loved as hard as you could for as long as you could. And sometimes, if you were really lucky, you found people who made all the broken pieces of yourself feel whole again, who saw your scars and your flaws and your fear and decided you were worth it anyway. Logan had gone to a crowded beach with his daughter looking for one good memory. He'd found a terrifying CEO who turned out to be just as lonely as he was. And together they'd built something neither of them had believed possible. A family, a home, a future. The sandcastles they built would always wash away with the tide. But the love they shared, the memories they created, the life they were building together, that would last. That was permanent. That was everything.